war, violent conflicts around the world, death, devastation, and human suffering. If we can't stop all of these tragedies, how can we at least prevent some of them? The answer may surprise you. It's called Business for Peace. Welcome to Business and Society. I'm John Paluszek, your host. Last year, the United Nations Global Compact, with its 8,000 member companies around the world, undertook an epic commitment to help companies make a positive, long-lasting contribution to peace and development. That commitment is called Business for Peace, and it is a platform of the Global Compact. Today, in Global Compact Business for Peace networks around the world, companies, often partnering with governments and civil society organizations, are confronting many of the root causes of conflict in high-risk areas. The Business for Peace mission is clearly ambitious, but it's grounded in reality, and it's already making a substantial difference in conflict-affected areas around the world. Our first guest today to tell us about Business for Peace is Sir Mark Moody-Stuart. After a distinguished career at the highest levels of international business and society, Sir Mark Moody-Stuart is now Vice Chair of the UN Global Compact Board, as well as Chair of the Business for Peace Steering Committee. He is also the author of the recently published and already acclaimed book, Responsible Leadership: Lessons from the Front Line of Sustainability and Ethics. Welcome, Sir Mark, to the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Perhaps we could begin this way. Business and peace, not often juxtaposed, but the UN Global Compact Business for Peace platform seems to have accomplished that.
We provide employment, training, for example, with ex-combatants, people who've laid down their arms, been persuaded to lay down their arms, sometimes paid to lay down their arms. If they don't find gainful, sustainable employment, they are in danger of going back and picking those weapons up and going back to their old habits.
Sir Mark, you know that the program will be seen by the UN Global Compact academic arm, PRIME, in schools around the world, business schools and related institutions. And I'm sure that the students and the faculty and the leaders on those campuses would benefit greatly, would be very interested in your point of view on Business for Peace.
I think what we need is for business school students to realize that business goes way beyond, and that's the whole object of PRIME, goes way beyond just the apparent financial contributors to profitability. There's much more to it than that. What's the purpose of business? Beneficial to society, but also beneficial to business.
And business, capitalism, companies have evolved over the decades and centuries in terms of recognizing the way society is changing, what opportunities and what challenges are apparent in various decades.
I think what's new now is not the original concept, but the fact that businesses are learning to engage with civil society organizations and to work together. When responsible business gets together with constructive civil society and says, okay, here's the problem, we agree it's a problem, big or small, what can we do? Then you get these movements of things like the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, Kimberley process, UN principles for security and human rights, and so on, all of which were co-developed between civil society and business working together on a common problem. And that's where Business for Peace sits.
And you cover much of that in your new book, Responsible Leadership. We often speak only about the problems. So after all of the decades of your leadership at highest levels, what is it that drives you now in terms of Business for Peace?
Well, I think it's seeing how business as part of society, perhaps a fractured society, can help to heal that society, to make sure it doesn't slide back into violence. So you need extreme transparency of revenue, because if revenue flows are not transparent, people suspect the worst, and then before you know where you are, there's friction over it.
In the final analysis, this is really win-win.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming to the program.
Not at all. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
A program like the UN Global Compact's Business for Peace platform requires great coordination and central support. Our second guest today, Ms. Melissa Powell, has that formidable responsibility. Melissa Powell is head of strategy and partnerships and business for peace at the UN Global Compact. She has been coordinator, manager, and director of many UN Global Compact initiatives since its founding in 2001. Welcome, Melissa. You have been with the United Nations Global Compact virtually since its inception in 2001, but maybe Business for Peace and that platform is a little bit different and perhaps in some special way satisfying.
Definitely, John. Really trying to give them support and guidance around how they're operating in high-risk or conflict-affected areas. Already we've seen some great uptake from businesses around the world, both large and small, from 29 countries.
So in the 29 countries, there are all kinds of interesting case histories that come out of those networks.
Yes, that's right. And together with the companies, civil society, and governments in their countries, they're deciding on what the priority issues are in their specific operating environment, where the private sector can make a greater contribution to peace. Mm-hmm. So it's looking, peace is so contextual. What contributes to peace in one country is different country to country.
And you were at the announcement or the beginnings of one of the very impressive cases out there in Indonesia. What was that like?
That's true. No, that was very exciting. I mean, so far we've had country-level launches in Colombia, India, Indonesia, and Turkey. And Indonesia was really fascinating because they've identified intercultural and interreligious understanding as a critical factor that's important for sustainable peace in their country.
And that goes across sectoral boundaries as well. There are different belief groups, as it were, that are cooperating in this respect?
Definitely, definitely. That's what's really interesting. I mean, the business leaders in our network in Indonesia are from a variety of different faiths, a variety of different sectors, large companies, small companies.
That would seem to be duplicatable, as it were, in other parts of the world?
Well, this is also a great opportunity to highlight one of the unique features of Business for Peace. Because we have local networks in Pakistan, in Sudan, in Egypt, in Indonesia, in Colombia, they're able to actually share experiences. So it's actually really interesting to be able to see how what works, in Sri Lanka might also be applicable in the Colombian context.
So hopefully there will be more of these programs in more places.
Yes,
that's the objective.
Yeah, that's the objective. I mean, we want to do two things really. We're trying to ensure that companies are not doing any harm in the places that they're operating in high risk or conflict affected areas, while at the same time helping them to make positive contributions to peace.
What drives you as a person in this regard?
Well, for me, the fantastic thing is just the fact that the UN itself now is really engaging the private sector in ways that it hasn't before. And so in the years ahead, we hope to see a lot more specific projects on the ground in these countries.
Maybe some of the other countries in which Business for Peace is operating might have interesting case histories as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the other exciting examples that I think has happened relatively recently has been in our Colombia local network, where they've identified the reintegration of ex-combatants as a critical issue. And also the stigma associated with ex-combatants to make it less likely that they're incentivized to go back to fighting. I mean, as the country launches, we have a number of upcoming country launches scheduled for later this year in Pakistan and Nigeria, a few other places. And Business for Peace is really helping them to operationalize that commitment.
So for Business for Peace, the future is bright.
It is. I mean, I think we can make a real difference.
Thank you for coming to the program, Melissa.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
To view the full program and for more information, please visit businessandsociety.net.